with me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this Louie T Network exclusive recapping preseason game number 1 between the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. This game held real significance because you were seeing the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft for the first time on an NFL field with live bullets. I'm talking about CJ Stroud, the number 2 overall pick of the Houston Texans. And also Will Anderson, who was selected by the Houston Texans in the first round, trading back up and selecting him. So another, top 5 pick in the 2023 NFL draft. Also Christian Gonzalez, the number 16th overall pick, if I'm not mistaken, by the New England Patriots, was in this game. So a bevy of guys to take a look at for the first time on an NFL field. You're also getting the first look at Texans' new head coach, DeMeco Ryans, and that defense was feisty. Whew, they were feisty tonight. So we're going to talk about that as well. Tank Dell, man, a guy that I loved in this draft. You guys know how I felt about Tank Dell. He's going to be a player. We're going to talk about him, his debut. So many things to get to. Man, it's just good to see football. You can tell in my voice I'm excited. There was a lot of good stuff tonight. And the second game won't be all that great. Don't need to hold out for that one. Vikings and Seahawks probably aren't going to play any of their starters. I know the Vikings for sure aren't going to play any of their starters. So, but this game in particular, I'm going to be honest with you, a little disappointed that the Patriots elected not to put Mac Jones on the field for whatever reason. He needs work. He needs reps, and I don't know if there's an injury there, ailment, or they just decided to just, not play him and gave Bailey Zappi all the reps. But I would have liked to have seen Mac Jones tonight, but that's nor here nor there. Let's start with the Texans. They were the main attraction of the night anyhow. And so the first thing anybody wants to talk about, including myself, is CJ Stroud. So played 12 snaps in the game, only 2 possessions. Both were awful. Now, again, it's his first NFL experience. Let me first start by saying the offensive line was horrendous, okay? He had no chance tonight, okay? Now, with that said, I could tell he was a little nervous. His first completion of the game, that ball should have been out. Like, back foot hits the ground. That receiver was standing over there for about a good 2.5 seconds, and Stroud, finally got to him. That ball should have came out quick. It's a spot route. It's a hitch. You run up the field 5 yards, you turn around, the ball should be there. But it took him a while, because, again, this is what you have to get college quarterbacks out of the habit of, seeing guys wide open, right? In college, you want to see a guy, and again, when you're playing at Ohio State or Alabama or Michigan or one of these powerhouse schools, your guys are going to separate for you. So there isn't a whole lot of having to hold on to it or wait. Guys are separating quickly. You see open windows, and you get to throw to open receivers. In the NFL, those windows aren't going to be open for very long, and you have to anticipate. So these are some of the things that you look for in young quarterbacks, because they're going to make mistakes. They're going to be late on some throws. They're going to be slow to go through their reads and progressions. And it doesn't help when your offensive line isn't performing well. So keep in mind that Titus Howard, who just got a contract extension from the Texans, broke his hand probably 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week ago. He's going to be out probably 2 months, I would guess, a month and a half, 2 months. So they're missing a huge part of their offensive line on the right side. And the pressure was coming from, interior pressure, the right guard position in particular. But there was pressure on CJ Stroud throughout. And it did not help him in his first career start or first exposure in the NFL in this preseason tilt. However, he didn't look comfortable. He didn't look confident. And again, a lot of that I think had to do with the fact that the offensive line wasn't very good. Anyway, 2 of 4, 13 yards, 1 interception in 12 snaps. The interception was particularly bad, but again, it's what you expect from a young quarterback. He had a receiver open. He took too long to get to him. He thought he was wide open. He got baited, and it was undercut by Jalen Mills, who's a veteran, secondary member, played with the Eagles, now with the Patriots. I think he's been in New England for 2 or 3 years now, and he baited him. And he picked it off. He jumped in front of him. It was not a great throw. That throw should have more air on it to the outside. You know, if you're throwing anything outside and you're late and it's inside, you're begging for trouble. And that's what that pass was. It was late and it was thrown to the inside shoulder of that receiver. Should have been towards the sideline, away from the defender. And he had him open. It's not like it was a poor read. It's just it was poor execution on the part of CJ Stroud. He'll settle in, you know, and you get better with reps, right? The more you play, the better you get, or the more you see, and the better you'll be able to respond to what you're seeing, or you'll know what you're seeing and know where to go with the football. So he'll play more, he'll adapt, he'll adjust. It was not a great debut for him. You know, people are going to be running with this and going crazy. That's what people do. They're prisoners of the moment. It was one game. It was 2 possessions. Give me a break. All right. Yeah, no, he was not good tonight. But again, it's what you should expect from young guys. They're going to make mistakes. They could wow you, or they could make mistakes, or it could be somewhere in between. It wasn't a great debut, but again, I put a lot of that on the offensive line as well. They did not protect him well at all. And if that's the best they're going to do for CJ Stroud, it's going to be a long, long season for the number 2 overall pick. That is for certain. They're going to have to do a much better job of getting the ball out of his hands if that's the best the offensive line is going to do. And obviously, as I mentioned, having guys like Titus Howard out of the lineup does not help. But they're going to have to be better than that. That was not good enough. Nowhere near satisfactory. And keep in mind, we're talking about the New England Patriots. We're not talking about the Philadelphia Eagles or the Washington Commanders or the Cleveland Browns. We're not talking about these pass rushes that are loaded, or the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking about the New England Patriots. Can you name one guy on the Patriots defensive front? I'll wait. and Keon White, what was he, 2nd round pick? He doesn't count. Anyway, they're going to have to be better. If CJ Stroud's to have a prayer, they're going to have to be better. So that was the first thing that I noticed in that particular game. Tank Dell. So, man, this is a guy that you guys, if you were watching, you know how I felt about Tank Dell. And I said, look, I want him bad. Pause. Like, I want my Commanders to take Tank Dell because you can use him as a punt returner. He had a nice 13-yard punt return tonight. All right, just to give you a little taste there. If you're a Texans fan, that's a little treat. He had a touchdown grab. He had 5 catches for 65 yards on 8 targets. Tank Dell is going to be a problem. And to me, he's got number 1 receiver type of ability as well. Like, a lot of people looked at him, his size. Oh, okay, you know, high volume guy. No, this is one of those dudes that could easily come in the league and morph into Antonio Brown. Or you look up and he is a 1,000-yard slot machine like Brandon Cooks. But you just throw him out there, and it doesn't matter who's throwing the football, 1,000-yard receiver. I see that for Tank Dell. If he's healthy, he's going to be a problem. He was a problem tonight, and I think he's going to continue to be a problem. And that's a guy that I think the Texans need to start looking to try to build their offense around. Once they get settled in, I think that's the guy that needs to be at the focal point of their offense. They got some guys. You know, speaking of which, I'll save that for when we get to the Patriots side. It was good to see, speaking of guys, it was good to see John Mechie III out there. We knew about his leukemia that he found out about last year after being drafted by the Texans. Did not play the entirety of the 2022 season, missed his whole rookie campaign. It was good to see him back on the football field, man. You know, one of those guys you just root for because of what he just went through. And so it was good to see him get out there. He caught a pass. And I know he had to be a nervous wreck to be playing in his first game since that diagnosis. So shout out to John Mechie III and really excited for him to be back on the football field. And he's another guy that can help that Texans offense as well. Let's talk about the defense. So DeMeco Ryans is the new Texans head coach. And with him, you were supposed to have automatically right out of the gates a quality defense. Maybe not top notch until they get all the pieces that they need. They're slowly trying to build that. They came in and had some pieces there that I already like Jalen Petrie, who I felt like was a really good pick last year and showed some promise in his rookie season. And then you add in Will Anderson Jr. and guys like that, and you're going to continue to build that defense brick by brick, piece by piece. They also brought some guys. He brought some guys over from San Francisco that's going to help him implement this defense. They were flying around tonight, man. I mean, I get it. It's preseason game 1. Nobody's game planning. I get all of that. I don't care. CJ Stroud throws the pick on the first possession. And they come out and immediately get off the field. Sack Bailey Zappi on third down. I mean, he sent the house on that third down snap. He sent the house. Bailey Zappi just collapsed under the pressure, like, okay, don't hit me, please don't hit me. And just fell down, curled up in the fetal position, right? And they had to settle for a field goal, having great field position inside the 25-yard line after the pick. So that defense played some ball tonight. And if that's any indication of what they're going to be defensively, they're going to be in some ball games. I can't tell you if they're going to win them because this offense is probably going to be, way behind this defense, as you would expect. But that defense is going to keep them in some ball games. If they get quality play out of their corners, that defense is going to keep them in some ball games with their new head coach, DeMeco Ryans, kind of pulling the strings there and getting those guys into shape. They were flying around tonight. No doubt about that. Will Anderson had a tackle as well in his debut. So I'm just telling you, the Texans aren't going to be a pushover defensively. I don't know about this offense. They're going to have to figure some things out, obviously. They got some weapons, though. But CJ Stroud, and he shouldn't have even been out there for 12 snaps. They called a bogus roughing the passer penalty, with a hit to the helmet. That was trash. It should have been 2 3-and-outs for him, or not 2 3-and-outs. The first possession, they picked up a first down. Great move by the newest Houston Texan, Motor Singletary, who came over from Buffalo. He made 2 guys miss in the backfield to pick up a first down on a 3rd and short. But it was not a great night for the offense for the Texans with CJ Stroud in the lineup. Davis Mills actually looked really good, but that's what you expect. He's been here long enough. He should look solid. I get it. Different scheme, different, offensive coordinator, all of that good stuff. And he wasn't playing against the Patriots, ones and the guys that were out there early in the ball game, but still, doesn't matter. He looked a lot better. You would expect that. This is his 3rd year in the league. So, Patriots, on the Patriots side of things, no Mac Jones. Really disappointed by that. I'm not going to lie to you. I really felt like he needed to work. He should have been out there. But, it is what it is. So let's talk about Christian Gonzalez. It was a solid debut. Nothing, ridiculous out there. But I will say this on the let me get the Patriot. Let me get the I always forget his name. The Michigan receiver that the Texans drafted. That's his name. Nico Collins. All right. So I don't even have to look it up. First play of the game, I talked about CJ Stroud, first completion. And again, you could see processing slow. That ball should have been out a lot quicker. But he gets it to a wide open Nico Collins in the flat. Christian Gonzalez is playing soft, often soft. And he gives up, an easy completion. And instead of him going up, and this is the problem with Christian Gonzalez, and he's going to have to get out of this. And I'm not going to kill the young fella. All right. It's the first preseason game. Hopefully this was his welcome to the NFL moment. All right. But nonetheless, I hope he learns from this. And if I know Bill Belichick the way I think I know him, they're going to get on him in the film study about this because you can't do this. But in any event, first play of the game, he's often soft. He gives up the hitch, right? The 5-yard hitch, which you're not really tripping about. But it's what happens thereafter. So Nico Collins is able to catch the ball, turn up the field. Instead of Christian Gonzalez going up and meeting him and escorting him out of bounds, he kind of waits and allows Nico Collins to build up some steam. And I don't know if Christian Gonzalez thought he was back at Oregon and he's playing against maybe Colorado or Arizona State or Arizona, and they're just going to tippy-toe out of bounds here. I don't know what he thought was going to happen, but Nico Collins, who's a big dude now, Nico Collins is probably like 6'2", 6'3", 215, 212, 220 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, Nico Collins decided, welcome to the NFL, young fella. And he lowered, now he had stepped out of bounds in the process of doing this, but he lowers his shoulder and he trucks Christian Gonzalez. And I lie to you not, this man flew backwards 5 or 6 yards. Okay? Had Nico Collins stayed in bounds, It's a no contest. Luckily enough for Christian Gonzalez, he stepped out of bounds. Or he could have kept running right down the damn sidelines because he knocked him out of bounds like 2-3 yards. No bullshit. You can go watch it yourself. He's going to have to get tough, man. He's going to have to toughen up. The knock on him coming out of college, soft, with a capital T, drugstore cotton soft, doesn't want any contact, afraid to tackle. That's not a good look first snap of the game. All right? Again, I expect him to be better. I do. And that was a welcome to the NFL moment. Hopefully he learns from it and cleans that shit up. Because that was some nasty work he was just given. Okay? That was really nasty. That was gross. He should be ashamed of himself. So I'd like to see him tighten that up because I know the coverage is going to be there. He's super talented. Also, last thing for the Patriots, because there wasn't a lot on their side of things. Their second-year receiver, Tyquan Thornton out of Baylor, I wanted to not like him, because the Patriots just don't draft receivers well. And I keep wanting to say, oh, yeah, he's going to be – add him to the list, and it's a long list. The Bethel Johnsons, the Chad Jacksons of the world. Like, add him to the list, the N'Keal Harrys of the world. Add him to the list of all the failed Patriot, first, second round pick wide receivers that just didn't cut it in the NFL. I can't do that to Tyquan Thornton. I think this guy has a chance to be a playmaker. Had a nice catch down the sideline from Bailey Zappi with some solid coverage, and he went up and got it. I think this kid has a chance to be really good. We'll see. I don't want to crown him yet. But every time I watch him, especially in the preseason, I remember last year he had a touchdown grab in a preseason game as a rookie. Every time I watch him, I'm like, I think he's actually not that bad. Like, I want to not like him so bad. But I actually think he's going to be solid for them. We'll see. Somebody's got to step up. There's no more Jacoby Myers. Somebody's got to step up. Defensively, they were okay tonight. The Patriots were. And I'll say this: the offense, for what it's worth, it's going to be better with Bill O'Brien. I can already tell. And I don't need much. I can already tell. It's not going to be a shit show like it was last year at times. That said, who's going to make the plays for the Patriots? You want to know why their name was mentioned every time there was a high-priced or, super talented free agent, i.e. DeAndre Hopkins or Dalvin Cook? You want to know why the Patriots always get brought up? Because they don't have shit. They don't have anything. So it's going to be interesting to see who the hell are going to be out there making the plays for the Patriots. Maybe it's Tyquan Thornton. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. So that was the game in a nutshell. Like with the preseason, unless you're a fan of that team in particular, you're not getting into the nitty gritty of the third and the fourth quarter and the third string guys and the back end of the roster and these guys that are fighting for 2 or 3 roster spots. That's for the diehard Patriot or Texan fan to do. I'm just here to give you the overview of the game, the names that you need to know, the names that you do know, and how they fared in their first preseason game. Bailey Zappi didn't look bad. He didn't look great, but he didn't do anything terrible in the game. He didn't turn it over. He took what the Texans defense was giving him. He was under duress himself a couple of times. I talked about the first possession after the turnover, sudden change of possession. He got sacked, had to settle for a field goal. But all in all, it's a solid night for him. I still think Mac Jones is the guy there, but what's going to be interesting with the Patriots this year is if Mac Jones struggles early or, like he did last year, gets injured, it could open the door for a guy like Bailey Zappi. They like him in New England. So Mac Jones is treading on thin ice right now. He better come out and play really good football. And here's the thing, and we've talked about this in previous years, and I talked about this coming out of college. He's a bit of a head case. Mac Jones is a bit of a head case, and we've seen him showing his ass a couple of times. And then I remember listening to I want to say it was the Falcons' new defensive tackle, Calais Campbell. I want to say it was him. I'm not sure. But they asked him, who is the player that talked trash to him that he, that of recent note, that got to him? Who are some guys that talk trash? And he mentioned a bunch of players, but he said the guy was the most disrespectful with his trash talk. Like, he overstepped the line, was Mac Jones. Like, Mac Jones, I'm trying to tell y'all, he's a little off. Okay. Sometimes he doesn't respect authority, doesn't know what to say out of his damn mouth. So I could easily see him falling out of favor in New England if he's not playing well. We'll see what happens with him, though. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the comment section. If you're out there, you want to chime in, by all means, please do use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If you want to ensure that your comment is read, please use the super chat function. This will ensure that your comment is read, and it will also allow you to jump straight to the front of the line. Again, I'm not going to keep you here all night long, so we will get to all of the comments that we can, but we will definitely get to the super chats. So with that said, let's start the night off with Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, if there's anything I've taken from this game, it's reinforcing my gratitude to the Pats for taking Zappe over Howe and my love for Tank Dell. I don't understand how Bailey Zappe went before Sam Howell. I'm still scratching my head on that. But again, to your point, thank you, New England. Thank you, Carolina, for taking the Ole Miss quarterback. Thank you, Atlanta, for taking Desmond Ridder. Thank you, Tennessee, for taking what's my man's name? Shucks. It'll come to me. And I was just talking about him yesterday. That's the bad part about that. But yeah, all of those quarterbacks, not named Kenny Pickett, that went before Sam Howell. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Malik Willis, that's his name. Thank you, Titans, for taking Malik Willis. Zappe, if there were one name that didn't kind of fit, like which one of these quarterbacks shouldn't have gone before him, he's definitely the one, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with Bailey Zappe as a backup, and which is why New England took him, but Sam Howell's better than Bailey Zappe, and he's going to prove that. Tank Dell, man. Whew. God, I loved him coming out of Houston. And I was like, look, somebody's going to get themselves a dog, or let me be whack for a second. Somebody's going to get them a coug. They're going to get them a cougar. Man, this dude came in first game, and he looks like he's ready for all the smoke this year. He's ready for it. Boy, I think the Texans are going to end up getting away with one there. I'm right there with you, Red Wings. Right there with you. DJ23, stand up. Of course you in the building, as is the rest of the mob. Y'all know what it is. We always in the building, holding it down. DJ23, been a member for 6 months. Writes, instead of Anderson, should have drafted O-line help. But you know what? In their defense, DJ, they've been drafting offensive linemen, it feels like in early rounds for the last 2 or 3 years, They haven't always hit, but they've spent some draft capital on offensive linemen. And remember, they also shelled out a bunch of money to Laramie Tunzel, made him the highest paid tackle at the time of that deal. So it's not like they haven't spent resources on that offensive line. So I can't beat them up for that. They just weren't good tonight. And again, no Titus Howard doesn't help on that right side. And that's where a lot of the pressure was coming from, that right side. But Titus Howard is their right tackle. He's not their right guard. And that's where the direct pressure was coming from. But again, no excuses. It's the NFL. Next man up. You know how it goes. They just got to be better. Point blank, period. They got to be better. You got a defensive-minded head coach coming in there. He's going to want to build that defense up. I'm not mad at him, He took the quarterback and then he doubled back and took Will Anderson. I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that at all. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Chris. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise, as always, Chris, who writes, which of the 3 first-round quarterbacks from this year's draft do you have the highest expectations for this season and why? That's easy. It's the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young. Now, I will tell you that the guy with the highest upside, and everybody is saying this, I'm not the only one saying this, it's Anthony Richardson in Indy, but he's, to me, also, I guess, to me, he also has the lowest floor. Highest ceiling and lowest floor. So you don't really know what's going to happen with him. I think CJ Stroud, all things considered, he's not in a great spot necessarily in Houston, in terms of talent and all of that good stuff. But all things considered, I think the ceiling and floor on CJ Stroud are like one and the same. I think he's going to be a solid NFL quarterback, worst case scenario. Even if it doesn't work out as a legit starter, he'll be a quality NFL backup, worst case scenario. Whereas Bryce Young, I think he's the safest of the 3 because I don't think, other than getting injured, I don't think there's any way he's going to fail in the NFL. That's how high I am on Bryce Young. He's got all the intangibles. He's got the leadership qualities. He's got the moxie and the poise. He's got enough arm strength. This arm is not the biggest, but it's big enough, plenty big to get the ball where it needs to go. I think Bryce Young's going to be a really good quarterback in this league. So I think, and I know they kind of did a lot to get him, including giving away DJ Moore. And so they're going to have to rebuild that, skill position group around him. But he's going to make the Panthers, I think, a contender for that division in year 1. I think the Panthers are a scary team this year to play against, and in a division that's not very good, that doesn't have a, team that is head and shoulders above the rest of the division. I guess the Saints right now are in the driver's seat because they're the most veteran team and they have the most veteran quarterback of all the 3 of all the teams in that division. I think they're the team that is the most ready. The Panthers are. And I know that sounds crazy. New head coach, new quarterback, new everything, essentially. I think they're the team most ready to compete against the Saints and maybe give them problems and try to steal that division away from them. So we'll see. I could be wrong, and I could be sleeping on the Falcons. I could be sleeping on Desmond Ridder. They've got talent in Atlanta. I could be sleeping on them altogether, and they could be making some noise this year. I actually like Arthur Smith, their head coach, a lot. But anyway, I digress. It's Bryce Young for me. It's Bryce Young, without a doubt. And it's because he has all the intangibles. I think you can give, CJ Stroud always had elite first-round talent around him, always. Both of his years at Ohio State, he was throwing the first-round pick wide receivers. Bryce Young, not the case last year, okay? And even the year before that, I'm not sure. I think he had one guy the year before that was like a first-round talent. But, Mechie went in the 3rd round, I believe. The guys that he was throwing to this year, none of those guys are going in the 1st or 2nd rounds. They're all probably 3rd round or later guys. So it wasn't the usual suspects that you've come to know and love at Alabama that, okay, yeah, he's throwing the 2-3 first rounders out there. Gone are the days, or at least last year, gone were the days of Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, all these guys all out there at the same time. He was throwing to some nobodies last year. And he made it work. And I think that's what he's going to be faced with. And he's most equipped to deal with that of all 3 of those quarterbacks. He's not going to have a ton of talent around him in Carolina. It's going to be some guys. And they've done some things out there. I don't want to make it seem like the cupboard is absolutely bare in terms of skill players. But they've got work to do. But he'll take the pieces that they give him and he'll make some things happen. and he can create off schedule. That's really not CJ Stroud's thing, creating off schedule. We saw it in the Georgia game, and we kind of went, oh, there it is. But it was one time, really. Like, he doesn't like to run around, and that's not really his thing. We'll see. You know, Richardson is going to be fun because if they're going to build an offense that is catered to his skill set, they're going to run the hell out of that read option. They're going to force you to defend him as a runner. That's going to open up the RPO game. They're going to literally take what they did in Philadelphia last year with Jalen Hurts. Shane Steichen is going to take that carbon copy of what they did in Philadelphia, bring it to Indy, add a few wrinkles, and insert a quarterback that's bigger, stronger, probably faster, with a stronger arm in Anthony Richardson. That could end up being really fun to watch in Indianapolis. It could end up being a lot of fun in Indianapolis. I wouldn't sleep on him, but I'm going with Bryce Young. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. My guy Chris writes, hey, Lou. What up, Chris? He says, what is the one NFC team outside the Commanders and one AFC team that didn't make the playoffs last year to make it this season, and why? So in the NFC, I think you're going to get a new participant in the playoffs from the NFC South. Somebody has to go from that division. So I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit and just say the Saints, more likely than not, or the Falcons, or the team that I just mentioned, the Carolina Panthers, are going to make the playoffs. Somebody else is going to win that division. It won't be Tampa this year. I can assure you of that. Okay? So right then and there, that's low-hanging fruit. That's almost cheating, right? Because it doesn't force me, it doesn't require me to use any critical thinking. I can just say the Bucs aren't going to be good enough to make the playoffs this year. Hence, someone else is going to make, and I think that's a one-bid division. You're not going to get multiple teams from that division. So I think that's low-hanging fruit. But I'm going to take that low-hanging fruit, take it right off the tree, boop, take a bite out of that, and not feel bad about it. So, because you already know, I think the Commanders are going to, be a team that's going to be in that mix. Another team that could be interesting is Green Bay. Everybody's going to jump on the Lions train. I'm not jumping on that train. They're going to have to prove it to me. But a lot of people like the Bears as a chic pick. Nah, I'm going to pass on that one too. All right. We'll see what Jordan Love does. I'm anxious to see him. He should be playing in this first preseason game. I told you this year's preseason actually has a chance to be really entertaining because a lot of teams have new quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, or in the case of the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, it's a different team, not necessarily a different system because Rodgers is playing under Nathaniel Hackett. He knows that offense already. That's why they brought Nathaniel Hackett there so that there wouldn't be this learning curve. But the rest of the team doesn't know the offense. This is their first year, okay, except for Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb. Everybody else is in the first year of this offensive scheme. So they need the work. Now, those joint practices that they had with the Panthers this week were supposed to serve as that, and then they weren't going to play Rodgers in the preseason, but they just canceled the joint practice from yesterday. So I'm thinking maybe they need to get some work. They probably still won't, but I don't know. Just a thought. Anyway, you're going to see a lot of teams throwing their first team out there because you got a lot of young quarterbacks. Talk about Desmond Ridder. The Titans have a lot of decisions to make out there with their quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill is going to be your starter, but even if you're looking at the second, third team, but it's still Will Levis and it's still, Malik Willis, you still want to see what those guys look like. So you're going to see Jordan Love more likely than not at some point, if not this week in week 1 of the preseason. You're going to see him in week 2 or whatever the case may be. Obviously, Bryce Young, as I mentioned. Anthony Richardson has already been announced as a starter against the Bills in preseason game number 1. Sam Howell in Washington with the Commanders. I think Deshaun Watson needs to play. He didn't get enough reps last year with the Browns. So, again, I can go on and on and on. We saw C.J. Stroud tonight. You're going to see a lot of teams playing their starters. And I mentioned this on the podcast. The Broncos have already said they're going to play Russell Wilson in week 1 of the preseason. So I think you're going to see a lot more teams put their starters out there. So it's going to make for a really compelling preseason. Don't sleep on Green Bay. I can't wait to watch Jordan Love because I was really high on Jordan Love when he came out of Utah State. So I'm actually really intrigued by him, and I think he can actually be a really good NFL quarterback. And I like what I saw in relief of Aaron Rodgers last year in that Packers game, or the Eagles game, rather. it was a far cry from, the timid, nervous, scared Jordan Love we saw in the one start that he has under his belt, because he's only got one career NFL start against the Chiefs 2 years ago. So I can't wait to watch him. But I'm going to go with the Saints. I think they're going to win that division. They're the most experienced team in that division. And then in the AFC, there's a lot of teams to choose from. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, the first team that comes to my mind is the Steelers, because Mike Tomlin just doesn't know how to lose. And year 2 of Kenny Pickett, I think, is going to be better. You can see that guys like George Pickett's gaining confidence out there. He may be a bona fide number one. He's acting as one in camp right now. I retweeted one of the crazy sick catches he had in camp. And we saw him doing it last year as a rookie, and then you start adding in some of the other pieces. That defense is nasty when TJ Watt plays. The Steelers are really intriguing, man. So that's one team. Obviously, the Jets, is a chic pick, and rightfully so. That's probably got to be your number one in the AFC. I've talked to a number of people who don't think the Jets are going to live up to the hype. And Rodgers was frustrated in practice yesterday. They had, or 2 days ago, they had a scrimmage with the Panthers, who they'll be playing in preseason game number 1, and they were doing the scrimmages throughout the week and joint practices, and they were struggling on offense, bad. So it's going to take a little while. That's what everybody fails to realize, is when shit is brand new, like people getting on, Dak for 3 picks in practice, it's a new offense for Dak. Kellen Moore isn't there anymore. He's learning a new scheme. Like, mistakes will be made. Everybody wants it to just look like a finished product immediately. That's not how this works. So, there could be some struggles early in the season. I'm actually somewhat jealous of the teams that will get an opportunity to take on the Jets early, because they could be a little discombobulated to start the season. It might not look as pretty as it might look. Remember the Bucs in Brady's first year? Remember how up and down and disjointed they looked for the first 8 weeks of the season or so? It wasn't until their bye week. They had a late bye, like week 13. And they came off the bye and they started blowing everybody out and scoring a ton of points. It wasn't until then that they actually got their shit together. Remember Brady trying to, go for it on 5th down, right? Because he said, it's 4th down, right? No, Brady, that was 4th down. Get off the field. You lost to the Chicago Bears on a Thursday night. And, they were all over the place early. That could be the Jets this year. But eventually, with all the talent that they have, if they protect Aaron Rodgers, eventually they're going to get it together. So it sickens me that my Commanders don't play them until like week 14 or something like that. By that time, they've got their shit together and they're probably shifting into high gear. And we might get caught in a buzzsaw by then. I'd rather see them in week 3, not week 14. But it is what it is. Jets, Steelers are at the top of my list. The Browns are a sleeper. Nobody's really talking about them, but they play in such a tough division. If they don't have their shit together, again, Joe Burrow is the wild card. If he's healthy, Cincinnati, Baltimore are usually at the top. But remember, the Ravens have a new offense this year, a lot of new weapons, a lot of new pieces. That could take a little while there too, right? So another reason why Lamar should be playing in the preseason. Don't know if it'll happen, but they need reps. I'll take the Jets, and I'll go 1A, 1B. I'll take the Jets. Don't sleep on the Steelers, though. Don't sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin just doesn't know how to lose. That counts for something. And with Kenny Pickett going into year 2, I saw some good things from Kenny Pickett in his rookie season. And with them going into year 2 of Kenny Pickett, them adding weapons, I think the Steelers could be a team to be reckoned with. If TJ Watt's healthy, when he's healthy, that defense is ferocious. And now they got high Hightower on the other side, or Highsmith, excuse me, on the other side, they got a formidable defense. Do the Steelers. So, John Perez, my guy JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JP writes, "What's going on, Lou? What's up, JP?" Says, "Got back from vacay last Saturday, man. Awesome. It was awesome. I'm so glad you were able to, have that getaway with the fam. Hit the reset button. It's always a beautiful thing, man. Do yourself a favor if you're out there. Make sure you take some time to go on vacation with the ones you love. You create priceless memories when you do that." Says, feel a whole lot better, and you will. You definitely will. Glad to hear that. Heard that Stroud was lousy tonight, but to be fair, Houston's O-line sucks. Stroud was not good tonight, but again, it's his first game, first NFL exposure. And not that Bill Belichick and company were game planning for him, but it's not helpful that the first NFL defense you see is one constructed by Bill Belichick. It's raining at Gillette Stadium, so that doesn't help. And your offensive line wasn't very good tonight. So, and that doesn't help. And not to say that CJ would have been excellent with great protection. We won't know because it wasn't great, but he looked like a rookie playing in his first NFL game. He looked nervous. He looked a little timid, a little tentative. He'll be better. The more reps he gets, the better he'll be. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. It wasn't a great debut, though. Let's see. Dream Team Buddha Film Production says, "Lou, we back, baby. We back. It feels so good. Feels good. Feels good to be talking about some football, man. Oh, man. Feels great." Jared says, Matthew Judon. Did you look that up? You might have got that off the top of your dome. That's a good pull. But he wasn't even out there tonight, just so you know. He did not play tonight. Matthew Judon did. Let's see. Got a comment from, hold on. Okay, I got one right here. I skipped over this one. HHC Lunar writes, "Now that was tough. Thought Texas O-line was good. Maybe it's just Tunzel. Their offensive line is better than what they showed tonight. Again, they're missing one of their best offensive linemen, as I talked about, broken hand. So, that hurts anytime you're missing one of your guys. But it wasn't a good performance from their offensive line. They got to be better. That wasn't good enough." Johnny Boy 26, "Football is back, baby." Yes, indeed. It's a beautiful feeling, man. Beautiful feeling. HTTR Carson writes, "He gives me Haskin vibes. Great arm, not sure if he has the mobility or intangibles." So Ohio State doesn't have a great track record, as we all know, of producing NFL quarterbacks. So he has that against him. But as they say in the scouting community, don't scout the helmet, scout the player. And so I think he's better than Haskins. The beauty of watching CJ Stroud is, one, he's got more experience. Haskins should have gone back to college for another year. He wasn't ready after that 1 year. But he struck while the iron was hot. The league was prepared to slap him on the wrist and teach him a lesson, and teach a lesson to anybody else that was out there thinking that it was cool to come out after 1 year when there were still a lot of questions as to whether you were ready or not. And luckily enough for him, the Washington Redskins stepped up and made him a first-round pick. He was not going to be selected in the first round. If Washington doesn't take him, he would have fallen to the second round just like Drew Lock did. But Daniel Snyder stepped in and made an executive decision, and we all know how that went. But Stroud has more experience. I think he's a quicker decision maker than, and you didn't see that tonight. But again, that's to be expected. And I talked about this at the top of the show with a lot of college quarterbacks, especially the ones that played at elite programs with elite talent around them. They're so used to seeing big windows with guys running wide open. It's not hard to die. But the thing about CJ Stroud, as I say that, you go watch his college cut-ups, and a lot of games you will see him throwing into tight windows with pinpoint needle-like accuracy. So it's not like he was always throwing like Marcus Mariota at Oregon or some of these quarterbacks that play in these spread offenses with a ton of read option and RPOs where guys are running wide open over the middle of the football field. Don't get me wrong, with Ohio State talent, you're going to have guys running open and you just got to hit them. But he also threaded the needle a ton, right? So he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He's to me a much more polished quarterback than Dwayne Haskins ever was, if you ask me. May he rest in peace. But I think he's going to be fine. But I get it. It's easy to feel like he gives off Haskins vibes. I get that. I understand. Totally get it, especially when you start looking at the school and the track record and the history there. Could easily see how you could connect those dots. Swaggy P writes, missed the Texans versus Pats game. How was Gonzalez tonight? Him and Forbes will be compared to each other for years. So at the top of the show, once I got through all the Texans, I went to the Patriots, and I spent about a good 3 minutes or so talking about Christian Gonzalez and the lack of physicality on the very first snap of the game. So go back and watch is all I'll say. Go back and watch the beginning of this video, or probably like the maybe 10-minute mark or so, I guess is when I probably start talking about the Texans, somewhere in there, or Patriots rather. But I'll just say this. It wasn't flattering for Christian Gonzalez. And he was not bad tonight. I just need you to understand that. He was not terrible. He didn't give up a bunch of plays or anything like that. But he's going to have to be better. And I think he will. He's super talented. But as you've pointed out, and I talked about, when the decision was made by Washington to take Forbes over Gonzalez, these two will be joined at the hip. When you talk about Forbes, you're going to talk about Gonzalez if you're a Washington fan, because if Forbes turns out to be okay and Gonzalez turns out to be a stud, you're going to be upset. If you're the Patriots, you're not going to be comparing the two as much because you didn't have the choice. Forbes wasn't on the board, so that wasn't a discussion for you. So again, there's that. Oh yeah. Somebody said football is back, baby. Spam modder. Kevin the PRF. Yeah, that's when you know it's football season. When you see the same comments 577 times from some spam bots, you know it's football season. It's in the air, man. Anyway, Gary B writes, Tana says, until quarterbacks play his fourth game, he's still somewhat a rookie. With that said, Howe will be among the top of the first-year starters, HTTC. I know Ron Rivera has said something, he had this, like, these numbers in his head, like, you need 3,000 reps, some crazy cockamamie number he just pulled out of the sky. I don't know where the hell he got it from. But he said you had to have a certain amount of reps to no longer be considered a rookie. Like, whatever the hell that means. Okay, dude. But you just know when you know. As a fan that, for myself, having watched football for as long as I have, you just know when you know. You can see when a guy can do it, and you can tell very quickly when a guy can't, and we've been fooled before, but Robert Griffin III, case in point, his rookie season was full of smoke and mirrors. Why? Because Kyle and Mike Shanahan did a magnificent job of keeping NFL defenses off balance with, the RPO and the read option and Robert as a runner and having to defend against that. And, the drift route right over the middle of the field to Pierre Garçon. Like, all that stuff was hitting on all cylinders because it was the first time NFL defenses really saw this at that level. Like, really, really being put to the test. You see it in college all the time, but in the NFL game, it's tough because teams don't want to expose a quarterback like that. Well, he was really putting pressure on NFL defenses. You had to respect him as a runner, and it freed up a bunch of passing lanes. And, the thing was crazy. He had so much confidence in that rookie season that he was throwing into tight windows, right? But what happened when he was no longer feared as a runner, NFL defenses started to game plan a little bit more for the things he did well. They took away the easy completions over the middle of the field and forced him to be a pocket passer, which he claimed he wanted to be, which he wasn't ready for. He got exposed. He wasn't, ready to do that. You watch Ryan Leaf in those first 2 games of his career and you go, oh shit, I was a Ryan Leaf dude over Peyton Manning back in those days. I was flat out wrong, And after the first 2 games, I'm like, I knew I was right. This Ryan Leaf kid, man, he's going to be a beast. And then shit went downhill from there. So you can get fooled, but usually you see a dude 3 or 4 times, okay, yeah, this ain't it right here. He ain't it. It's too early on a lot of these kids. A lot of these quarterbacks, it's way too early, man, to be, last year, Malik Willis did not look good. He was a rookie. Like, I'm not gonna kill him for that. Everyone doesn't mature at the same rate. That's why you can't take what one player does and extrapolate that and say every guy's supposed to do that. Some guys come in the league and they hit the ground running and they're ready, man. Justin Jefferson, right out of the gate, ready for the action. Almost 1,500 yards in his rookie season, right out the gate. Who won it? Odell Beckham Jr., same thing. Rookie season, he missed the first 3 games or so and still dropped like 1,300 and some change in his rookie season. Who wanted the smoke? Right out the gate. And some guys, they just need a ramp. They need that ramp to build up speed first, right? They need a little bit more time to get acclimated to the NFL game before they start making that noise, but it's coming eventually. We'll see what happens. 4 games, that's a lot. I mean, in for a quarterback, small sample size. But I think by the 4th game, we knew what Taylor Heineke was. If you go back to the playoff game against the Bucs, and then you looked at him, I won't count the Chargers game or the Panthers game where he came in relief in both of those games. But if you look at all his starts, you had the Bucs start. I'm talking about in Washington, not the ones in Carolina, the ones in Washington. You look at the Bucs playoff start, then the first game of his the first start of the next season for him was week 2 against the Giants Thursday night, the Bills game, and then the Falcons game. So that's his first 4 starts. You're thinking, hey man, we might have something. It was after that start against Buffalo or against Atlanta rather, where we started to see the real Heineke. And I told y'all after the Saints game, I'm not sure that he's anything more than backup. And then the Chiefs game the following week confirmed it for me. And I said, y'all, we dealing with a backup quarterback. A high-level backup. I would want him on my team, but he's not a starting quarterback. Took me roughly 5, maybe 6 games to identify that. But again, you can't always do that. You look at Kirk Cousins. Man, if you would have said after his 4th or 5th start that you'd say, hey, get him out of the damn league. He's a turnover machine. Remember, he was about to be benched during, if they lose that, you like that game, Jay Gruden's getting fired at the bye week. Kirk Cousins is getting benched. And who knows what happens to his career then. He authors that the largest comeback in Washington Redskins history. The rest is history. He becomes the quarterback that we know today. And so it's hard to do that. So some guys just need a little bit more time. Russell Wilson came into the league immediately, was ready to go, right out of the packaging. Kirk Cousins needed more time. Same round. I think Russ was 3rd round. Kirk was 4th. But same draft. 1 round apart. One guy gets the nod immediately and never looks back. The other guy took him some time, struggled initially, but figured it out eventually. Anyway, I digress. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Reedy Davis writes, Lou, Sam should play one quarter in the first game. I literally think he's going to do exactly what CJ Stroud did tonight. 2 possessions, no more than that. Don't expect it. I wouldn't be looking for it if you're a Washington fan. Prep yourself for 2 possessions. And again, if the first possession is outstanding and it's a 10-play drive, it's 1 possession. Okay? I think they got a number of snaps in mind. Less about playtime, more about the actual snaps. They may go in and say, hey, anywhere from 12 to 15 snaps in this first game. CJ Stroud got 12 snaps in 2 possessions. That's about the going rate. I expect Sam Howell to play at a maximum 2 possessions, at a minimum 1. That's what my head's set on. You get Jacoby Brissett out there. Maybe the starters come out for 1 more possession with him. Maybe just the starting offensive line. But the likelihood is you get everybody out after Sam leaves, and Jacoby has to go out there and fend for himself behind a backup offensive line. That's my guess. But again, we'll see. What Sam should do and what Sam ultimately will do is 2 different things. You think he should play a quarter. I'm telling you, he's playing 1 or 2 possessions. Now, again, I've told you this. 1 or 2 possessions could equate a quarter when it's all said and done. If the Browns get the ball first and they put together a 6-minute drive, Sam comes out there and they get the football and they put together an 8-minute drive. Well, that's the end of the first quarter. So technically, he played a quarter, right? It was 1 possession, though. You know what I'm saying? So don't get caught up in the quarter. Get caught up in more so the numbers. How many possessions did he play? How many plays were on each possession? And that's more of an indicator of what went down. So anyway, I digress. Abel Ambrosio writes, who is a sleeper commander that no one talks about, will have a good preseason, something like Torrey McTyer had? And also, I ran into a television interview you had 7 years ago, and man, LT, you got drip. Yeah, that was old. Like you said, 7 years ago. But it was a lot of fun. It was my first exposure to being on television and how tedious it can be. But it was a lot of fun. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see who jumps out at us. My guy is Mitchell Tinsley. I think he's fighting for a roster spot. I don't think he's going to make it ultimately. I think it's going to be a numbers game. The worst thing that happened to Mitchell Tinsley was Byron Pringle showing up a couple of weeks ago, because I think Byron Pringle is your wide receiver 5 right now, and they're going to keep 6. And Mitchell Tinsley doesn't return anything on special teams. I don't think he's even a core special teamer yet, which he'll have to be if you're going to be on the back end of the roster. He didn't play a lot of special teams in college because he was such a primary receiver at Western Kentucky and then Penn State. So he didn't play special teams in college. So I just don't think, and he's not a burner, which is what you want for guys that are going to be receivers that are going to run down there for you, like Byron Pringle is. So if he's not returning any kicks, if he's not an extraordinary special teams player, you're behind the 8 ball. So I do think Mitchell Tinsley, however, is going to be one of the leading receivers for this team in the preseason, which could present a problem, because if you're trying to sneak him onto the practice squad, which I assure you Washington is going to try and do, somebody else could be keeping tabs on this kid and say, hey, look, man, we don't have a lot. If I'm Carolina and I see Mitchell Tinsley going off and we're struggling at receiver, and I'm just throwing Carolina out there, they may be fine at receiver. It could be some other team. But if I'm struggling at receiver and my cupboard's somewhat bare, and I see this young kid out here, undrafted, high production at the collegiate ranks, gets an opportunity and he proves he can do it on an NFL stage, I don't care if it's against 2s or 3s, I'll take a chance on him. So I'm going with Mitchell Tinsley. I don't think it's going to be enough for him to make the football team. I honestly think the only position right now, there are 2, I should say, not only. There are 2 positions right now that I believe somebody can steal a roster spot at. Like Mason Brooks, I think can fight his way onto the roster. But it's got to come at the expense of one of the guys that they spent, not one of the guys. It'd have to come at the expense of the 4th round pick, Braden Daniels. I don't think they want to cut ties with him. But, Mason Brooks can make it very tough on them. I think they feel confident that they can put Mason Brooks on the practice squad and continue to work with him, continue to develop him. So I don't see anything happening there. I don't think they're going to cut a 4th round pick. But again, stranger things have happened. I think the real competition where somebody could steal a roster spot is defensive end. That's where the real action is for me. Because are you keeping 5 or are you keeping 6? If you're keeping 6, I think it's a lot easier of a decision. But, Andre Jones, if he plays extremely well, we're just assuming KJ Henry is on this team. What if KJ Henry's out there getting his ass whooped and Andre Jones is out there doing work? Swap out the 7th for the 5th, right? Yeah, we traded up for him, but who gives a shit? Give me the guy that's going to give me the most production if he's thrusted into action. So either, it could easily be Casey Toohill that's on the outside looking in. I don't think it will be. I just assume Andre Jones is going to be the guy on the outside looking in as a 7th round pick, similar to William Bradley King. But it could be KJ Henry for all I know. It could be F.A. Obata. I doubt it, but again, it's a lot of competition at defensive end. Want to see who steps up. John Perez, thank you for the comment, who writes, part of me wants to pick the Jets to face Kansas City in the AFC title game, while the other part of me thinks they're going to fall flat on their face and everybody gets fired. I don't think this is a fall flat on your face, everybody gets fired type of scenario. If this doesn't work, Rodgers essentially signed a 2-year deal, so he'll be back next year. Unless he has the worst time of his life, which right now he's having one of the best times of his life. Unless he has the worst time of his life and decides, I don't want to play football anymore, he'll be back next year. And if he's back, Nathaniel Hackett's back. And if Nathaniel Hackett's back, well, you might as well just bring the entire band back together. You're not going to give Nathaniel Hackett the job. Robert Saleh is a guy that I think they feel really good about as a head coach. So even if this thing ends up at 7-10 and it's a disaster with the expectations being what they are, they may run it back and do it again next year. I can't see this thing being a everybody's fired type situation, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this Jets football team. They're so talented. You're going to see that over the course of Hard Knocks, right? They're so talented, man. It's a lot of good football players. Health is going to be the key. They stay healthy, they're going to be problematic. All right, this will be the last one, then we'll get out of here. HTTR Carson writes, so is Chase going to get another epic preseason sack tomorrow and not use the move again the rest of the season? LOL. I have hope that this time around, because he went back to his stomping grounds, worked with his former college coach, Larry Johnson, who he credits for a lot of his success. And you see him and Tez after practice quite often. I know you guys have seen the same clip of them doing the hand fight, right? The hand fighting drills, knocking the hands down, discarding hands. I've said this a million times. 50% of pass rushing is hand usage. 40% of pass rushing is mental. 10% of pass rushing is physical, God-given ability and gifts. Because you can be explosive and dynamic off the snap and just win strictly off of that. But eventually, guys are going to get out of the blocks. Guys are going to, figure out a way to combat that speed, and you're going to have to do something else, which is the mental aspect, setting dudes up. Okay, I went speed 3 times in a row, beat you twice. I didn't get to the quarterback either time, but it's enough to scare you that you're going to jump out of the blocks to try to cut me off. And the minute I see you open that gate, you swing that gate open, I'm going inside, crossover, right? Or the minute I see you anticipating speed, boom, I'm putting my long arm or the law right into your chest and driving you right back into the quarterback, putting you on skates. It's all mental, right? So defeating hands, get your hands off me, because that's how you dip that shoulder and finish. They call it, bending that corner, rounding the track, flattening to the quarterback. You call it whatever you want, right? But how you shorten that edge, how you flatten to the quarterback, is you get their hands off of them and then you dip that shoulder. You put the brakes on and you flatten down to that quarterback. Hand usage is king. That's why Nick Bosa is one of the best in the NFL. That's why he's one of the best, if not the best pass rusher in the NFL right now. Anyway, I digress. We'll see what happens, man. I hope he gets another one of those sacks. I'll be excited if he gets one of those. I won't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, but what I will do is I will be excited about that sack and say, all right, do it again. And I'll challenge him to do it again. I would much rather him do that than nothing. That's for sure. I'd much rather him, beat the pass rush, the tackle, get to Deshaun Watson, force a fumble that we don't recover, that we should, but we don't. And feel like, all right, Chase about to have 15 and a half, like I did 2 years ago when I got bamboozled. So I'd rather that than the alternative. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy DJ23, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, did we waste the 3rd round pick because at camp Ricky was working with the 3rd string? No. I mean, this is what you got to understand. Ricky Stromberg was drafted with, same thing with Braden Daniels. They were drafting those guys with the future in mind. Like, they already had signed Nick Gates. It's not like the draft comes before free agency. They already had signed Nick Gates. They had already bought back Tyler Larson. They already knew that they were going to have 2 centers more likely than not in front of Ricky Stromberg. But you know what happened to us the last 2 years at center, right? We got all the way to the 3rd string center each of the last 2 years. So in their minds, he may not be ready to start, but by the time we may potentially need him, he should be ready to go. That's the mindset. So, no, they didn't waste the 3rd round pick. They already knew that they had a starting center already on the team. And if they were bringing back Tyler Larson, he'd be the backup. They knew that. Unless Ricky Stromberg came in here and wowed them and knocked their socks off, they knew he was probably going to be 3rd string. And they were fine with that. So, no, they didn't waste a pick on him. You can't say that about a 3rd round pick in his rookie season. We'll see what happens. Jordan Like the GOAT says, think of Stromberg's playing time like Percy Butler or BSJ when he was drafted. Specifically Percy Butler, right? Even though they're not the same round. One's the 4th round, one's the 3rd round. There's a big difference between a day 2 and a day 3 pick. But, yeah, similar to that. I mean, hell, look at the De'Ami Brown. Like, we barely saw him in his rookie season. Like, all 3rd round picks don't contribute right away. You'd like them to, but the reality of it is most of them don't contribute at a high level in their rookie seasons. So, again, not a big deal. Good point, Jordan Like the GOAT. Anyway, I digress. You guys, get out of here. We'll be doing this for most of the weekend. Obviously, tomorrow, we're going to be talking Commanders ball. That's going to be so much fun. Browns, Commanders, 7 o'clock tomorrow, 7:30, I believe, tomorrow. We'll be live shortly thereafter that game meets its conclusion. And we'll talk about all that we saw. Obviously, most of the conversation, just like this particular game, will be about the starters and what happens early in the game, and most of it in the first half. Unlike this game in particular, most of us are Commanders fans, so we will be talking about some of the guys we saw on the 2nd and even the 3rd string, because we are warped in our thinking like that. We're crazy. All right. I don't mind being crazy when it comes to football. So anyway, I digress. Preseason football. Yay! It's back. But I think we're going to have some fun this preseason with a lot of starters seeing action. This was, I think, just the tip of the iceberg, seeing the number 2 overall pick in action tonight. We'll see the number 1 overall pick in action, I think, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. If not him, let me check the itinerary here and see who's playing when are these games taking place. I want to say the Panthers are playing tomorrow. Nope. We are getting the Panthers, and that game is going to be on NFL Network. So, and the Colts are on Saturday as well. So, we'll see those 2 rookies on Saturday, and you'll see Howell, Ritter, Jordan Love, probably Kenny Pickett, all, and maybe Russell Wilson and maybe Deshaun Watson all tomorrow on Friday. So anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here and enjoy the rest of your evening. Lots of preseason action tomorrow, and I'll be back like cook crack. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys have a great night. God bless. Good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.